There is broad scientific agreement that global warming is happening and that we humans are at least partially to blame. But there are some very important scientific skeptics. Last week, in the opinion pages of the New York Times, one of the most important of those skeptics did a public about-face. Richard Muller is a physicist at the University of California at Berkeley who until recently doubted the existence of global warming. Now, he says, it's real and humans are almost entirely to blame. How he came to this change of heart or mind and why is fascinating. Welcome, Professor Muller.
Thank you.
You say in that piece that all scientists should be skeptics, and I think you're right. I remember Niels Bohr once said that every statement should be taken by a scientist as a provisional hypothesis that has to be tested. So what made you start doubting your original skepticism? What made you look at, what evidence convinced you that something real was happening here?
The issues were so large that about 2.5 years ago, my daughter and I began a major scientific research effort in which we recruited a dozen of some of the top scientists in the world, including Saul Perlmutter, who won the Nobel Prize last year, well after he joined our team. So we felt there were questions that were valid, questions about data reliability, about data adjustment, about the choice of the stations which had been used. These demanded attention, and I couldn't get the answers. Only way to do it is to do the study ourselves. So after a great deal of work, largely done by Robert Rohde, who I can't compliment enough, his superb work in data analysis, which we all carefully participated in, about a year ago, maybe 9 months, I came to the conclusion that, yes, global warming was real. Then, over the last 3 to 6 months, Rohde was able to extend the record back to 1753. We now had a really long record, beginning before the American Revolution, when Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were the ones taking the data. With this long record, we could look for the signatures of the various possible causes. We're able to rule out solar variability, able to rule out volcanoes. They had an effect, but it was short-lived. When we tried fitting it to see whether it looked like carbon dioxide, it was right on. It was a shock to me that how well that carbon dioxide curve fit our new temperature data set.
So when you look at the historical data now, is it fair to characterize the situation thus, that ever since the Industrial Revolution, human beings have been pumping more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that increase in CO2 has been having the effect that we call global warming?
That is my viewpoint on this. You can't prove it. It's always possible that something random is happening that just happens to match the carbon dioxide data, but it leads me to conclude that essentially all of this warming over the last 250, 260 years has been caused by greenhouse gases emitted by humans.
Now, do you also worry about the potential effects that this will have on life on Earth? Because a lot of people talk about global warming, and then they say if it gets to a certain point, the higher end of the UN estimates, you could have very significant coastal flooding. You could have kind of unintended consequences or sort of follow-on effects that could be even more damaging to life on Earth.
Well, I am deeply worried about it. The coastal flooding, the UN estimate is something like between 2 and 3 feet. That's not huge, but I am concerned. I think rising temperatures soon will be in a realm that's higher than we, Homo sapiens, have ever experienced. I do not personally believe that's good for our civilization. I think we really do need to do something about it.
And what do you think, when you look at the issue of what to do about it, there are people who say, look, the only thing we can do is what's called adaptation. We should rotate crops, we should build dikes, we should do those kinds of things. And then there are people who say, no, the problem is so serious, you have to actually get at the root cause and slow down the emission of CO2.
I believe in the latter. And adaptation, we're a very adaptable species, but adaptation is always disruptive and it hurts. Let's see what we can do. And the biggest thing we have to do, we have to recognize that the reason the carbon dioxide is shooting up is not because of the U.S. Ours has actually been going down over the last few years as we switch from coal to natural gas. Natural gas emits only 1/3 the carbon dioxide that does coal. If we are going to do something about this, there are two things we have to do. One is energy conservation efficiency. That's really important, a huge amount we can do there. Number two is we've got to switch the world, China, India, and particularly the developing world, away from coal and onto natural gas. That's a solution that a lot of my environmentalist friends don't like because they have decided they have to oppose hydraulic fracturing, known as fracking. But in fact, that is one of the two biggest things we can do, energy conservation and a switch to natural gas from coal.
Your funding, some of your funding came from the Koch brothers, who are famously anti-global warming or believe that it isn't happening. How did that play out? Were they disappointed by the results of your research? Have they asked for their money back?
I actually find it amusing how many people think they know what the Koch brothers are thinking. It's a caricature of these people who I did speak with them, and they made it clear to me from the very beginning that they recognized that there were serious issues raised about prior estimates to global warming, everything from urban heat islands to data selection bias to other things. And they knew that I wanted to look into that our team would do a good unbiased job, and all they were asking for was scientific objectivity. So I was very pleased with their fundings. I really sensed they wanted to have this problem solved, and they never gave me any suggestion, any hint of a suggestion about which side they were hoping we would come out on.
And you haven't heard from them since you've gone public on these issues?
Oh, I actually have talked to them, and they appeared to be very pleased.
Professor Muller, pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Dr. Muller's ideas, he has a new book out, Energy for Future Presidents, from Norton. We'll be right back in just a moment with a conversation you won't want to miss. There's a reason your mother told you never to talk about politics in mixed company. I'll explain.